Okay, so tonight we're doing again a reading from the Gospel, and we are on chapter 13, but we're in the middle of it, so we're on page 283. But I'll begin with the chant to Ramakrishna. Om Hridaya Kamala Madhye Rajitam Nirvikalpam Sada Sada Kila Beda Tikameka Swarupam Prakriti Vikriti Shunyam Nityamananda Murtim Vimala Paramahamsam Ramakrishnam Bhajamaha Vitaritum avatirnam jnana bhakti prashantihi Pranaya galata chittam jiva dukha sahishnu Drita saja samadim chinmayam komalangam Vimala paramahamsam Ramakrishnam Bhajamaha. This is the meditation on Shiramakrishna. This knower of Brahman, ever established in his own nature, full of wisdom, self-possessed and self-lighted, eternal, the very image of that Brahman who is pure bliss, shining ceaselessly in the lotus of the heart, one alone and without parts, pure and still. This Ramakrishna, Paramatma Supreme, we adore. Subtle, fine and luminous, not even the shadow of the gross can ever reach him, for his purity is without parallel. Untouched by Maya's webs of deceit, beyond the dark river of time and desire, vast as the sky, the Supreme Lord, this Ramakrishna, Paramatman Supreme, we adore. Saturated with divine consciousness, his home is in all. He hears every cry. He knows every pain. Under the weight of its compassion, his heart can deny the need of none. Born to raise the world with teachings of knowledge, love, and peace. Born to bring mankind fresh songs of joy. This certain refuge of all. This Ramakrishna, Paramahamsa, the Paramatman Supreme, we adore. So I usually start with something I've been doing about some little sections on how he initiated different people, but this time what I'm going to do is read a couple of letters, what Swamiji had to say about him. It turns out that M sent the first writings he had of the gospel to Swami Vivekananda. And so this is his reply. This was written the 24th of November, 1897. My dear M, many thanks for your second leaflet, Leaves from the Gospel. It is indeed wonderful. The move is quite original, and never was the life of a great teacher brought before the public, untarnished by the writer's mind, as you have presented this one. The language is beyond all praise, so fresh, so pointed, and withal so plain and easy. I cannot express in adequate terms how I have enjoyed the leaflets. I am already in a transport when I read them. Strange, isn't it? Our teacher and Lord was so original, and each one of us will have to be original or nothing. I now understand why none of us attempted his life before. It has been reserved for you, this great work. He is with you, evidently, with all love and namaskar. Vivekananda. And the next thing I'm going to read is just a little bit about what Holy Mother said. There existed an extraordinary relationship between Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. She often spoke of herself as his handmaid and instrument, as one of the many seekers who found refuge at his feet. When a devotee asked her advice, she said, "I do not know anything. I repeat only what I have heard from the Master. Read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and you will know all that you need to." So with those two quotes, I'll begin where we left off the last time, the reading. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the steps of the southeast veranda of the Kali temple. Rakal, M, and Hazra were with him. He talked lightheartedly about his boyhood days. When it was dusk, he returned to his room and sat down on the small couch. Soon he went into samadhi, and in that state began to talk to the Divine Mother. He said, "Mother, what is all this row about? Shall I go there? I shall go if you take me." The Master was going to a devotee's house. Was it for this that he was asking the Divine Mother's permission? Again, he spoke to her, perhaps praying about an intimate disciple. "Mother, please make him stainless." "Well, Mother, why have you given him only a particle?" Remaining silent for a moment, he said, "Oh, I see. That will be enough for your work." In the same state, he said, addressing the devotees, "That which is Brahman is verily Shakti. I address that, again, as Mother. I call it Brahman when it is inactive, and Shakti when it creates, preserves, and destroys. It is like the water, sometimes still, and sometimes covered with waves. The incarnation of God is a part of the Leela of Shakti. The purpose of the divine incarnation is to teach man ecstatic love for God. The incarnation is like the udder of a cow, the only place milk is to be got. God incarnates himself as man. There's a greater accumulation of divinity in an incarnation, like the accumulation of fish in a deep hollow in a lake." Some of the devotees wondered, is Sri Ramakrishna an incarnation of God like Krishna and Chaitanya and Christ? Sri Ramakrishna, this is Sunday, September 9th, 1883. Sri Ramakrishna had finished his midday meal and was sitting on a small couch. Rakal, M, and Ratan were sitting on the floor. Ratan was a steward of Jadu Malik's garden house and was devoted to the Master. Now and then, Ram Chatterjee and Hazra passed in or out of the room. It was about 2:00. Ratan told the Master that a yatra performance by Nilakanta had been arranged in Jadu Malik's house in Calcutta. Ratan to the Master, "You must go. The date has been set." Master, "That's good. I want to go. Nilakanta sings with great devotion." A devotee, "That is true, sir." Master, "Tears flow from his eyes as he sings." To Ratan, "I'm thinking of spending the night in Calcutta when I go to see the yatra." Ratan, "That will be fine." Ram Chatterjee and other devotees asked Ratan about a theft in Jadu Malik's house. Ratan, "Yes, the golden sandals of the deity were stolen from the shrine room in Jadu Malik's house. It's created an uproar. They're going to try to discover the thief by means of a charmed plate. Everyone will sit in one room, and the plate will move in the direction of the man who stole the sandals." Master with a smile, "How does the plate move? By itself?" A devotee, "It's a kind of sleight of hand. It's a clever trick." Master, "The real cleverness is the cleverness by which one realizes God. That trick is the best of all tricks. As the conversation went on, several Bengali gentlemen entered the room and after saluting the master, sat down. One of them was already known to Sri Ramakrishna. These gentlemen followed the cult of Tantra. The master knew that one of them indulged in immoral acts in the name of religion. The Tantra rituals, under certain conditions, allow the mixing of men and women devotees. But Sri Ramakrishna regarded all women, even prostitutes, as manifestation of the Divine Mother. He addressed them all as Mother. Master, with a smile, where is Achalananda? My ideal is different from that of Achalananda and his disciples. As for myself, I look on all women as my mother. The visiting gentleman sat silent. Master, every woman is a mother to me. Achalananda used to say, stay here now and then. He would drink a great deal of consecrated wine. Hearing about my attitude toward women, he stubbornly justified his own views. He insisted again and again, why should you not recognize the attitude of a hero toward women? Won't you admit the injunctions of Shiva? Shiva himself is the author of the Tantra, which prescribes various disciplines, including the heroic. I said to him, but my dear sir, I don't know. I don't like these ideas. To me, every woman is a mother. Achalananda did not support his own children. He said to me, God will support them. I said nothing, but this is the way I felt about it. Who will support your children? I hope your renunciation of wife and children is not a way of earning money. People will think you are a holy man because you have renounced everything, so they will give you money. In that way, you will earn plenty of money. Spiritual practice with a view of winning a lawsuit, earning money, or helping others win in court and acquire property shows a very mean understanding. Money enables a man to get food and drink, build a house, worship the deity, serve devotees and holy men, and help the poor when he happens to meet them. These are the good uses of money. Money is not meant for luxuries or creature comforts or for the buying of position in society. People practice various tantric disciplines to acquire supernatural powers. How mean such people are. Krishna said to Arjuna, friend, by acquiring one of the 8 siddhas, you may add a little to your power, but you will not be able to realize me. One cannot get rid of Maya as long as one exercises supernatural powers, and Maya begets egotism. Body and wealth are impermanent. Why go to so much trouble for their sake? Just think of the plight of the Hatha Yogi. Their attention is fixed on one ideal only, longevity. They do not aim at the realization of God at all. They practice such exercises as washing out the intestines, drinking milk through a tube, and the like, all with that aim in view. There once was a goldsmith whose tongue suddenly turned up and stuck to his palate. He looked like a man in samadhi. He became completely inert and remained so for a long time. People came to worship him. After several years, his tongue suddenly returned to its natural position, and he became conscious of things as before. So he went back to his work as a goldsmith. Everybody laughs. These are physical things, and they have nothing to do with God. There was a man who knew 82 postures and talked big about yoga samadhi. But inwardly, he was drawn to woman and gold. Once he found a banknote worth several thousand rupees. He could not resist the temptation and swallowed it, thinking he would somehow get it out later on. The note was got out of him all right, but he was sent to jail for 3 years. In my guilelessness, I used to think that the man who had made great spiritual progress, really, I say it upon my word. Mahendranath Paul of Sindhi once gave Ramlal 5 rupees. Ramlal told me about it after he had gone. I asked him what the gift was for, and Ramlal said it was meant for me. I thought it might enable me to pay off some of my debt for milk. That night I went to bed, and if you would believe it, I suddenly woke up with a pain. I felt as if a cat were scratching inside my chest. At once I went to Ramlal and asked him, "For whom did Mahendra give this money? Was it for your aunt?" "No," said Ramlal, "it was meant for you." I said to him, "Go and return the money at once, or I shall have no peace of mind." Ramlal returned the money early in the morning, and I felt relieved. Once a rich man came here and said to me, "Sir, you must do something so I may win my lawsuit. I've heard of your reputation, and so have come here." "My dear sir," I said to him, "you have made a mistake. I'm not the person you're looking for. Achalananda is your man." A true devotee of God does not care for such things as wealth or health. He thinks, "Why should I practice spiritual austerities for creature comforts, money, name, or fame? These are all impermanent. They last only a day or two." The visiting gentleman took leave of the master after saluting him. When they had departed, Sri Ramakrishna smiled and said to him, "You can never make a thief listen to religion." All laugh. Well, what do you think of Narendra? M. He is splendid. Master. Yes. His intelligence is as great as his learning. Besides, he's gifted in music, both as a singer and a player. And then, too, he has control over his passions. He says he will never marry. M. You once said that one who constantly talks of his sin really becomes a sinner. He cannot extricate himself from sin. But if a man has firm faith that he is a son of God, then he makes rapid strides in spiritual life. Master. Yes, faith. What tremendous faith Krishna Kishore had. He used to say, "I have spoken the name of God once. That is enough. How can I remain a sinner? I have become pure and stainless." One day, Haladari said, even a Jamala had to perform austerities to gratify God. Can one receive the grace of God without austerities? What will one gain by speaking the name of Narayana only once? At these remarks, Krishna Kishore's anger knew no bounds. The next time he came to this garden to pick flowers, he wouldn't even look at Haladari. Haladari's father was a great devotee. At bathing time, he would stand waist deep in the water and meditate on God, uttering the sacred mantras. Then the tears would flow from his eyes. One day, a holy man came to the bathing place on the Ganges at Aradaha. We talked about seeing him. Haladari said, "What shall we gain by seeing the body of a man, a mere cage made of the 5 elements?" Krishna Kishore heard about it and he said, "What? Did Haladari ask what would be gained after visiting a holy man? By repeating the name of Krishna or Rama, a man transforms his physical body into a spiritual body. To such a man, everything is the embodiment of spirit. To him, Krishna is the embodiment of spirit, and his sacred abode is the embodiment of spirit. He also said, a man who utters the name of Krishna or Rama even once reaps the result of hundreds of sandhyas. One of his sons chanted the name of Rama on his deathbed. Krishna Kishore said, he has nothing to worry about. He has chanted the name of Rama, but now and then he wept. After all, it was the death of his own son. Nothing whatsoever is achieved by the performance of worship, japa, and devotions without faith. Isn't that so? Yes, sir, that is true. Master, I see people coming to the Ganges to bathe. They talk their heads off about everything under the sun. The widowed aunt says, without me, they cannot perform the Durga Puja. I have to look out after even the smallest details. Again, I have to supervise everything. When there is a marriage festival in the family, even the bed of the bride and groom. Why should we blame them? How else will they pass the time? Master, with a smile. Some people have their shrine rooms in their attics. The women arrange the offerings and flowers and make the sandal paste, but while doing so, they never say a word about God. The burden of the conversation is, what shall we cook today? I couldn't get good vegetables in the market. That curry was delicious yesterday. That boy is my cousin. Hello there. Do you still have the same job? Don't ask me how I am. My Hari is no more. Just fancy. They talk of such things in the shrine room at the time of worship. Yes, sir. It is so with the majority of cases. As you say, one who has passionate learning for God. One who has passionate yearning for God, continue formal worship and devotions. Can one who has passionate yearning for God continue formal worship and devotions for long? Ramakrishna and M were now conversing alone. This reminded me of a time when Ramakrishna once actually slapped Rani Rasmani, and she was just sort of sitting there, and everybody was, absolutely appalled because she was the owner of the whole place. But she admitted afterward that she'd been thinking of something else, and of course Ramakrishna knew what was going on in her mind. So he was aware of all these things. Sir, if it is God himself who has become everything, then why do people have so many different feelings? Master, undoubtedly God exists in all beings as the all-pervading spirit, but the manifestation of his powers are different in different beings. In some places, there's a manifestation of power of knowledge. In others, the power of ignorance. In some places, there's a greater manifestation of power than in others. Don't you see that among human beings, there are cheats and gamblers, to say nothing of men who are like tigers? I think of them as the cheat god, the tiger god. And with a smile, we should salute them from a distance. If we go near the tiger god and embrace him, he may devour us. Master, he and his power, Brahman and its power. Nothing else exists but this. In the hymn to Rama, Narada said, O Rama, you are Shiva, and Sita is Bhagavati. You are Brahma, and Sita is Brahmani. You are Indra, and Sita is Indrani. You are Narayana, and Sita is Lakshmi. O Rama, you are the symbol of all that is masculine, and Sita of all that is feminine. M. Sir, what is the spirit form of God like? Sri Ramakrishna reflected for a moment and said softly, I shall tell you what it is like. It is like water. One understands all this through spiritual discipline. Believe in the forms of God. It is only after attaining Brahmajnana that one sees non-duality, the oneness of Brahman and its Shakti. Brahman and Shakti are identical, like fire and its power to burn. When a man thinks of fire, he must also think of its power to burn. And again, when he thinks of the power to burn, he must also think of fire. Brahman and Shakti are like milk and its whiteness, water and its wetness. But there is a stage which is beyond even Brahmajnana. After jnana comes vijnana. He who is aware of knowledge is also aware of ignorance. The sage Vasishtha was stricken with grief at the death of his 100 sons. Asked by Lakshmana why a man of knowledge should grieve for such a reason, Rama said, Brother, go beyond both knowledge and ignorance. He who has knowledge has ignorance also. If a thorn has entered your foot, get another thorn, and with its help take out the first. Then throw away the second also. M. Should one throw away both knowledge and ignorance? Master, yes. That is why one should acquire vijnana. You see, he who is aware of light is also aware of darkness. He who is aware of happiness is also aware of suffering. He who is aware of virtue is also aware of vice. He who is aware of good is also aware of evil. He who is aware of holiness is also aware of unholiness. He who is aware of I is also aware of you. What is vijnana? It's knowing God in a special way. The awareness and conviction that fire exists in wood is jnana, knowledge. But to cook rice on that fire, eat the rice, and get nourishment from it is vijnana. To know by one's inner experience that God exists is jnana. But to talk to him, to enjoy him like a child, as a friend, as master or beloved, is vijnana. The realization that God alone has become the universe and all its living beings is vijnana. According to one school of thought, God cannot be seen. Who sees whom? God is outside you. Is he outside you, that you can see him? One sees only oneself. Having once entered the black waters of the ocean, the ship does not come back, so it cannot describe what it experiences. M. It is true, sir, as you say, having climbed to the top of the monument, one becomes aware of what is below. Horses, carriages, men and women, house, shops, and offices, and so on. Master, I don't go to the Kali temple nowadays. Is that an offense? At one time, Narendra used to say, what? He still goes to the Kali temple? M. Every day you are in a new state of mind. How can you ever offend God? Master, someone said to Sen about Hriday, he's very ill. Please bring 2 pieces of cloth and a couple of shirts for him. We will send them to his village. Sen offered only 2 rupees. How do you explain that? He has so much money, and yet he is so miserly. What do you say to that? M. Those who seek God cannot behave that way. I mean those whose goal is the attainment of knowledge. Master, God alone is the reality, and all else is unreal. Saturday, September 22nd, 1883. Sri Ramakrishna was seated in the drawing room of Adar's house in Calcutta with Rakal, Adar, M, Ishan, and other devotees. Many gentlemen of the neighborhood were also present. It was afternoon. The master was very fond of Ishan. He had been a superintendent in the accountant general's office, and later on his children also occupied high government positions. One of them was a classmate of Narendra. Ishan's purse was always open for the poor and the needy. When he retired from service, he devoted his time to spiritual practice and charity. He often visited Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineswar. Master, to Ishan, please tell us the story of the boy who posted the letter. Ishan, with a smile. A boy once heard that God was our creator, so he wrote a letter to God, setting forth his prayers, and he posted it. The address he put on the envelope was heaven. Master, with a smile. Did you hear that story? One succeeds in spiritual life when one develops a faith like that boy's. To Ishan, tell us about the renunciation of activities. Ishan, after the attainment of God, religious duties such as the sandhya drop away. One day, some people were sitting in the bank of the Ganges performing the sandhya, but one of them abstained from it. On being asked the reason, he said, I'm observing asocha. I cannot perform the sandhya ceremony. In my case, the defilement is due both to birth and death. My mother, ignorance, is dead, and my son, self-knowledge, has been born. This asocha is a temporary defilement caused by the birth or death of a blood relative. Master, tell us also how caste distinction drops away when one attains self-knowledge. Ishan. Shankaracharya was once climbing the steps after finishing his bath in the Ganges, when he saw just in front of him an untouchable who had a pack of dogs with him. You have touched me, said Shankara. Revered sir, said the pariah, I have not touched you, nor have you touched me. The self is the inner ruler of all beings and cannot be contaminated. Is there any difference between the sun's reflection in wine and its reflection in the Ganges? This reminds me, in Varanasi, that place where this supposed meeting of Shankara with the Chandala happened. There's a place there. There was a man who used to live right very close to it. And when we used to go sometimes to Vishwanath, he would talk to us about it. Now they build up everything. I'm kind of afraid to go back. It's going to be like a big park, and I'm afraid that place will be gone and all the other little nooks and crannies. Anyway, there's some wonderful stories there. And since so many of the holy people went to Vishwanath, there are many, many stories about the area around it, of things that happened there. Master, with a smile. And about harmony, how can one realize God through all paths? Ishan, smiling. Both Hari and Hara are derived from the same root, the root Hri, from which both words are derived. Further, Hari and Hara are two manifestations of the same Godhead. Hari is the name of Vishnu, the ideal deity of the Vaishnavas, and Hara the name of Shiva, the ideal deity of the Shaivites. Ishan smiling. The difference is only in the pratyaya. In reality, he who is Hari is also Hara. If a man has faith in God, then it doesn't matter whom he worships. That word, pratyaya, evidently there's a pun on that word, because it means both faith and inflection, depending on how you say it. So he was actually saying both, I think. If a man has faith in God, then it doesn't matter whom he worships. Master. And please tell us also how the heart of the sadhu is the greatest of all. Ishan. This earth is the largest thing we see anywhere around us, but larger than the earth is the ocean, and larger than the ocean is the sky. But Vishnu, the Godhead, has covered the earth, sky, and netherworld with one of his feet, and that foot of Vishnu is enshrined in the sadhu's heart. Therefore, the heart of the holy man is the greatest of all. The devotees were delighted with Ishan's words. Ishan intended to retire to a solitary place and practice a special discipline of the Gayatri, through which Brahman is invoked. But the master said that the knowledge of Brahman was not possible without complete destruction of worldliness. Further, he said that it was impossible for a man totally to withdraw his mind from the objects of the senses in the Kali Yuga, when his life was dependent on food. That is why the master discouraged people from attempting the Vedic worship of Brahman and asked them to worship Shakti, the Divine Mother, who is identical with Brahman. Master to Ishan. Why do you waste your time simply repeating neti neti? Nothing whatsoever can be specified about Brahman except that it exists. Whatever we see or think about is the manifestation of the glory of the primordial energy, the primordial consciousness, creation, preservation, and destruction, living beings and the universe, and further, meditation and meditator, bhakti and prema. All these are manifestations of the glory of that power. But Brahman is identical with its power. On returning from Ceylon, Hanuman praised Rama, saying, "O Rama, you are the supreme Brahman, and Sita is your Shakti. You and she are identical. Brahman and Shakti are like the snake in its wiggling motion. Think of the snake. One must think of its wiggling motion, and thinking of the wiggling motion, one immediately thinks of a snake. Or the like milk in its whiteness. Thinking of milk, one has to think of that color. That is whiteness. And thinking of the whiteness of milk, one has to think of milk itself. Or are they like water and its wetness? Thinking of water, one has to think of its wetness, and thinking of the wetness of water, one has to think of water. This primordial power, Mahamaya, has covered Brahman. As soon as the covering is withdrawn, one realizes, I am what I was before. I am thou, and thou art I. As long as the covering remains, the Vedantic formula, I am he, that is, man is the supreme Brahman, does not rightly apply. The wave is part of the water, but the water is not part of the wave. As long as that covering remains, one should call on God as mother. Addressing God, the devotee should say, "Thou art the mother, and I am thy child. Thou art the master, and I am thy servant." It is good to have the attitude of a servant toward the master. From this relationship of master and servant spring up other attitudes, the attitude of serene love for God, the attitude of a friend toward a friend, and so forth. When the master loves his servant, he may say to him, "Come and sit by my side. There is no difference between you and me." But if the servant comes forward of his own and will to sit by the master, will not the master be angry? God's play on earth as an incarnation is the manifestation of the glory of Chit Shakti, the divine power. That which is Brahman is also Rama, Krishna, and Shiva. Ishan. Yes, sir. Both Hari and Hara are derived from the same root. The difference lies only in the pratyaya. Master. Yes. There is only one without a second. The Vedas speak of it as Om, Satchidananda Brahman. The Puranas as Om, Satchidananda Krishna. And the Tantras as Om, Satchidananda Shiva. The Chit Shakti as Mahamaya has deluded all with ignorance. Is it not said in the Adhyatma Ramayana that when the rishis saw Rama, they prayed to him with these words, saying only, "O Rama, please do not delude us with your world-bewitching Maya." Ishan. What is this Maya? Master. Whatever you think, see, hear is Maya. In a word, woman and gold, lust and greed is the covering of Maya. There's no harm in chewing betel leaf, even eating fish, smoking, or rubbing the body with oil. What will one achieve by renouncing only these things? The one thing needed is the renunciation of lust and greed. That renunciation is the real and supreme renunciation. Householders should go into solitude now and then to practice spiritual discipline in order to cultivate devotion to God. They should renounce mentally, but the sannyasis should renounce both mentally and physically. I once said to Keshav, "How can a typhoid patient be cured if he remains in a room where a pitcher of water and a jar of pickles are kept? Now and then one has to live in solitude." A devotee. Sir, what do you think of Nahabidyan? It seems to me like a hodgepodge of everything. Some say it is a modern thing. This is the new dispensation that he's speaking of. That set me wondering. Then is God, the God of the Brahmo Samaj, a new God? The Brahmo speaks of their cult as Nahavidyan, as new dispensation. Well, it may be so. Who knows? There are 6 systems of philosophy, so perhaps it's like one of these. But do you know where those who speak of the formless God make their mistake? It is when they say that God is formless only, that those who differ with them are wrong. But I know that God is both with form and without form, and he may have many other aspects. It is possible for him to be everything. to Ishan. The Chit Shakti, Mahamaya, has become the 24 cosmic principles. One day I was meditating, and my mind wandered away to Rakshki's house. He's a scavenger. I said to my mind, "Stay there, you rogue." The Divine Mother revealed to me that the men and women in this house were mere masks. Inside them was the same divine power, Kundalini, that rises through the 6 spiritual centers of the body. Is the primordial energy man or woman? Once at Kamarpukur, I saw the worship of Kali in a house of the Lahas. They put a sacred thread on the image of the Divine Mother. One man asked, "Why have they put the sacred thread on the mother's person?" The master of the house said, "Brother, I see you have rightly understood the mother, but I do not yet know whether the Divine Mother is male or female." It is said that Mahamaya swallowed Shiva. When the 6 centers in her were awakened, Shiva came out through her thigh. Then Shiva created the Tantra philosophy. Take refuge in the Chit Shakti, the Mahamaya. Ishan, please bestow your grace on me, Master. Say to God with a guileless heart, "O God, reveal thyself to me," and weep. Pray to God, "O God, keep my mind away from woman and gold," and dive deep. Can a man get pearls by floating or swimming on the surface? He must dive deep. One must get instruction from a guru. Once a man was looking for a stone image of Shiva. Someone said to him, "Go to a certain river, and there you will find a tree. It's near a whirlpool. Dive into the water there, and you will find the image of Shiva." So I say that one must get instruction from a teacher. Ishan, that is true, sir. Master, if Satchidananda, that comes to us in the form of guru, it is he. If a man is initiated by a human guru, he won't achieve anything. If he regards his guru as a mere man, the guru should be regarded as the direct manifestation of God. Only then can the disciple have faith in the mantra given by the guru. Once a man has faith, he achieves all. The Sudra Ekalavya learned archery in the forest before a clay image of Drona. He worshipped the image as a living Drona. That by itself enabled him to gain mastery in archery. That's a story that comes in the Mahabharata of Ekalavya, the hunter. And he couldn't have Drona as an actual teacher because he was of a very low caste. So he made this image and he worshipped it. And he became a master archer, even better than Arjuna. And Arjuna saw something, he'd shot this dog with all these arrows. Anyway, he saw that and he realized there was someone here that was better actually than he was. And so he was jealous. And his teacher was Drona. And so he told Drona about it. And Drona said, okay, to Ekalavya, he said, if I'm your teacher, which you're saying, claiming that I am, then I want my teacher's fee. And so he said, what is it? And he said, your thumb. So he took his thumb off, which meant that he could no longer be an archer. And that was for Arjuna. I've never forgiven for Arjuna for that one. Quite. Anyway, Anyway, it's one of the stories in Mahabharata. There's wonderful stories there, all different kinds. Don't mix intimately with Brahmin pundits. Their only concern is to earn money. I've seen Brahmin priests reciting the Chandi while performing the Swadhyayana. It's hard to tell whether they're reading the sacred book or something else. They turn half the pages without reading them. All laugh. A nail knife suffices to kill oneself. One needs a sword and a shield to kill others. That is the purpose of the Shastras. One doesn't really need to study the different scriptures. If one has no discrimination, one doesn't achieve anything through mere scholarship, even though one studies all the 6 systems of philosophy. Call on God, crying to Him, secretly in solitude. He will give you all that you need. Sri Ramakrishna had heard that Ishan was building a house on the bank of the Ganga for the practice of spiritual discipline. He asked Ishan eagerly, "Has the house been built? Let me tell you that the less people know of your spiritual life, the better it will be for you. Devotees endowed with sattva meditate in a secluded corner or in a forest, or withdraw the mind into the mind. Sometimes they meditate inside the mosquito net." Now and then Ishan invited Hazra to his house. Hazra had a craze for outward purity. Sri Ramakrishna often discouraged him in this. "Master," to Ishan, "let me tell you another thing. Don't be over fastidious about outward purity." Once a sadhu felt very thirsty. A water carrier was carrying water in his skin water bag and offered the water to the holy man. The sadhu asked if the skin was clean. The carrier said, "Revered sir, my skin bag is perfectly clean, but inside your skin are all kinds of filthy things. That's why I can ask you to drink water from my skin. It won't injure you." By your skin, the carrier meant the body, belly, and so forth. Having faith in the name of God, then you won't need to even go to holy places. Sri Ramakrishna sang, intoxicated with divine fervor, "Why should I go to Ganga or Gaya, or Kashi, or Kanchi, or Prabhas, as long as I can breathe my last with Kali's name on my lips?" Ishan remained silent. Master to Ishan, "Tell me if you have more doubts." Ishan, "You said everything when you spoke of faith." Master, "God can be realized by true faith alone, and the realization is hastened if you believe everything about God. The cow that picks and chooses its food gives milk only in driblets, but she who eats all kinds of plants, then her milk flows in torrents. I once heard a story. A man heard the command of God that he should see his ideal deity in a ram. He at once believed it. It is God who exists in all beings. The Guru said to his disciple, "It is Rama alone who resides in all bodies." The disciple was a man of great faith. One day, a dog snatched a piece of bread from him and started to run away. He ran after the dog with a jar of butter in his hand and cried again and again, "Oh, Rama, stand still for a minute. That bread hasn't been buttered." What tremendous faith Krishna Kishore had. He used to say, by chanting Om Krishna, Om Rama, one gets the results of millions of sandhyas. Once he said to me secretly, "I don't like the sandhya and other devotions anymore, but don't tell anyone." Sometimes I too feel that way. Mother revealed to me that she herself has become everything. One day I was coming from the pine grove toward the Panchavati, and a dog followed me. I stood still for a while near the Panchavati. The thought came to my mind that the mother might say something through that dog. You are absolutely right when you say that the thought that through faith alone one achieves everything. Ishan, but we are householders. Master, what if you are? Through his grace, even the impossible becomes possible. Ram Prasad sang, "This world is a mere framework of illusion." Another man composed a song by way of reply, "This world is a very mansion of mirth. Here I can eat or drink or make merry. Janaka's might was unsurpassed. What did he lack of the world or of spirit? Holding to one as well as the other, he drank his milk from a brimming cup." One should first realize God through spiritual discipline in solitude and then live in the world. Only then can one become a King Janaka. What can you achieve otherwise? Further, take the case of Shiva. He has everything. Kartika, Ganesh, Lakshmi, Saraswati. Still, sometimes he dances in a state of divine fervor, chanting the name of Rama, and sometimes he is absorbed in samadhi. That's the end of that chapter. I was just going to mention that the priests who worship Shiva in the Vishwanath temple, they write Rama because they're worshippers of Rama, and Rama was supposed to be a worshipper of Shiva. But I was very surprised when I first went there and saw they were writing, the name of Rama on the Belpata leaves they offered. Anyway, I thought that was very nice. Yeah, you learn all kinds of things. Anyway, so that's it for the evening reading. Thank you for coming. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is he still the same. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all.